And we are live. Fantastic. Happy Monday. Good morning, everyone. This is the Hustle Science Experiment, and I'm excited to be joined by Jason LeDuc. Jason, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, it's a pleasure. You're really involved in the local Las Vegas scene, and so just a quick introduction for Jason. He has served in the United States Air Force for nearly 11 years. So thank you, Jason, for your service. And today he's a veteran owned. He owns his own business. He owns Evil Genius Leadership Consulting. You've been doing that, it looks like, for almost 10 years. The last couple of years, 8 years. You've been a business developer, but more so a leadership coach and consultant for corporations and other executives. And so, Jason, thanks for jumping in and doing this with us today. The business lesson we're going to be going over is being conscious and setting a good example in your work. Being conscious and setting a good example in your work. And then the life lesson will be the importance of balance, it seems like. And so, Jason, why don't you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll rock into this business lesson.
Yeah, so I was in the Air Force. I retired in 2015. Spent 20 years going all around the world, building teams, taking teams all around the world, doing cool stuff that I can't really talk about. And I learned a ton. You start out when you start out in the military, you're kind of just responsible for yourself, and then pretty quickly you start becoming responsible for other people and their well-being as well. And so that's why I started my business, to take those lessons that we learned in the military about getting a mission accomplished, getting a job done, but also taking care of people and building them into future leaders as well. That's why I started my business. That's why I love working with, whether it's one-on-one with a business owner or in a coaching capacity with an executive, or working with a company and coming in and doing training with their team on how to be good leaders and how to set yourself up to be a leader who thinks about the future, and developing yourself as a leader as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely incredibly important, whether you're an entrepreneur, your own business owner, or leading a team in a company, or in any part of professional life, really. And so today's business lesson is about being conscious and setting a good example. Can you expand on that?
Sure. Well, I think everyone kind of knows that leading by example, setting a good example is important, but it's kind of a really vague statement. And there are a number of experiences that I had in my Air Force career that pointed me to that. But then the one that's most important to me is in my very last assignment when I was an instructor in the Air War College distance learning program. I had a really good mentor who was a colonel there at the time, PhD, really smart guy, used to be a B-2 pilot, had been all over the world as well, doing things he couldn't talk about. But one of the things he always said, and it came down to when we were making decisions about how to proceed forward, and it falls in the vein of how you do things is important as what you do or the outcomes you get. And what he always said, what Colonel Redmond always said, was core values can't just be a poster you put up on the wall. You can't just say these are our values and then ignore them when it comes into your decision making process. So
Absolutely.
that was something that really resonated with me, that really stuck with me as I started this business, is whether it's values, whether it's the objectives we're after, whether it is the procedures we use, all of those things and more are really important. Those are the things we have to factor into our decision making process as leaders. And whether we are, again, an employee who's acting on our own and deciding what to do for ourselves, or a leader who's trying to get people all moving in the same direction, it's really important to be conscious about what we're choosing as values, what we're choosing as objectives, what we're choosing as processes and procedures for our team, and also communicating those really clearly. And coming down to the example part, if we say out loud we want to do something, if we say our values are one thing, but we consistently are doing things that are the opposite thing, we send a message that those values don't matter,
Right.
that there is no real conscious thinking on the leadership's part, on the upper level management's part, about how we do things, what we do, etc. So that in kind of one sentence, core values can't just be a poster we put up on the wall, kind of encapsulates a lot of experiences I saw where we had leaders who said, this is important to us, but through my other words and actions, I show that it's really not that important to me as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's a really great point, and something that I found in some of the startups that I've worked at that had good culture, powerful culture.
Mhm.
It was something that we really talked about every single day because it guided our decision making. And I just had a post about this on LinkedIn. Thank you for congratulating me on my anniversary, business anniversary.
Yeah,
And there were a
congrats.
couple. Thank you. There's a couple times where I was close to quitting, and some of my values are to keep moving forward, to always be learning, and take progression over perfection. So these are things that I reminded myself, in building the business that helped me, make decisions. And it's always a shame when folks just have like the standard, poster from Amazon with like the
Mhm.
four, hope core values, but then they're running over people in the boardroom, or being insensitive, or just not following through on their actions. And so that's probably one of your starting points if folks don't have core values baked into their business model, or not even into their business, but just into their workflow.
Well, every organization has values. Every
Yeah,
organization has a culture, as you said. The
right.
question is as leaders of that organization, whether it's a business or the government or a nonprofit or something else, is that culture that exists, is it the one we want to have? And that's where it's important to be conscious about the culture that we promote, the culture that we live every day as leaders. In a business, it's important to make money. Let's just be honest about that, right?
Yeah.
So whether it may not be one of our core values as a business, but certainly we're going to talk about, look, revenue is important, and at some point even in a startup, profit is important at some point. So we shouldn't ignore that. And I think you and I have both seen plenty of startups in various stages who are talking about having fun. They're talking about doing good in the world. They're talking about taking care of their team. They're talking about work life balance, all of those kinds of things. But some of them are never talking about making the money, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. And you don't have the business if you're not generating sales.
Right. And
So
those startups, you know, in the current investing climate, they can last a long time, but they usually have left behind
yeah,
nothing that's sustainable.
right.
So totally okay if it's important to make money. And again, just being conscious about that, right? If our values are integrity and creativity and connection with people and doing good in the world, that's important, but not forgetting that we're doing all of those things and we need to pull in revenue as well. Right. Otherwise you've just got a nonprofit, which is okay too.
Yeah, but be straight up about your intentions. I listened to this one talk a couple months ago, and the guy was just super abrasive intentionally, and he's like, "I'm here because I want to make a ton of money. That's what I'm here for." And
Mhm.
he kind of got into it, and one of the things that made me think about was how many folks in the business environment or the startup environment aren't treating seriously the importance to make money, and are almost it's almost like hiding the fact like money is a sin, and not
Mhm.
really tapping into it, and that's so counterintuitive. If you want to build a sustainable startup and grow and have impact, you need to talk about money up front. Like, how do you make money? Who can you sell to? You got to get revenue into the door. And I feel a lot of the founders that we've both seen are sometimes squirmish around that, or first time business owners are squirmish around
A
that.
little bit, yeah. A little bit for sure. And so no matter what your core values are, if you're running a for-profit business, just keep that in mind. And to me, integrity is really important. That's in everything I've ever been involved in. That's always been one of the values that I've promoted, whether it's officially on the list of core values or not. But integrity comes along with a couple of things. And that, again, being conscious about what you mean when you're doing things, when you're saying things, and how your actions, right? If integrity is a core value of your business, then it's really important to be honest. Hey, we're here to make money.
Yep.
And integrity is also a two-way street, right? It's hey, boss, I think there's a problem, right?
Hmm.
Being able to come forward with those problems, that's integrity too, not hiding a problem because you think you might get in trouble or the boss might not want to hear it. Now, the boss might not want to hear it. They might not react well. That's a whole separate thing. But having integrity means coming forward with the truth even if your boss isn't going to like hearing it. And as leaders, that's something we need to do is when we go to our team and say, I have some things I've got to tell you. You're probably not going to like hearing them. Here, we're going to be working this weekend,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, for sure.
I'm here to be honest with you about it. That's and setting that example through your words and your actions, not just saying this is what we believe and put the poster on the wall, is critical to creating that successful, sustainable business in the long run where people want to work there. They want the experience of working where you are. And especially what's going on right now with our tight labor market. If a company is having trouble attracting people or retaining people, those would be some of the first things I would talk about is, well, what are what is the culture at your company?
Hmm.
And is the culture you want at your company the culture you have, or is the culture you think you have the culture you really have? And let's dig into that.
Yep. Yep, for sure. I can see a lot of businesses missing the mark or just having lost thought of it or lost track of it, in a couple years in and needing to, have, there's a lot of businesses, especially, big corporations that just have terrible culture in their company or on their front the workers that are facing the consumer, right? Because that's a big part of where it's important is making sure that everybody, bottom up, top down, is happy and fulfilled, by their work. I want to get into the other lessons, but I want to ask you one more question, which is we had some folks like Quincy Savage and Cyril Cruz dropping some comments, and some of the other core values that are brought up are accountability and transparency. And I agree with those core values as well. And I think that there's probably like a core set of core values that almost every business should have anyways. And then you could build on top of that to, make it more culturally relevant. But what would be some of the, at minimum core values that you'd hope, or not hope, but a company needs to have a good culture?
Yeah, and so the great thing about core values is they are what you say you are, what they are as a leader, right? So to me, things like transparency and accountability, to me, that's all integrity, right? Accountability falls a little bit under excellence. I can tell you when I created my business, I went through the exercise of thinking about my values. These are the ones that are important to me. They're going to be differing. They're going to vary in different ways for different businesses, but for me, it was integrity. It was excellence. With these are no surprise because these are two of the Air Force core values. So coming right out of the Air Force, no surprise there. Creativity, solving problems in a creative way, not doing things the way we've always done them, so that we can serve our clients best. That was really important to me. And connecting with people. Leadership is a people business. If you're just turning the crank and providing the same thing to everyone, you're not really connecting. So those were the four that were important to me. I think it's important for every business to go through this exercise. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but determining as the founder or the CEO or the president or whatever your role is, it comes from the top, and it has to be it has to come from the top. It has to be embraced from the top, and the top has to make sure that it's happening at every level.
Yeah.
So that's really important to me. So I think a lot of businesses and nonprofits have those same a lot of variations on those four I talked about. I think those are really important, but there are some like I've seen impact. People want to make an impact in the world. They explicitly put that in their core values, and that's great because that means that's right at the top of their priority list is making an impact, not just turning the crank every day on what we do, but making a big impact is important to them. So that's my advice: is go through and do go through and do that exercise. Every business should do that, and every business should revisit it either every few years, or if you're in a rapidly growing business, as you kind of move from these stages, pre-seed, seed stage, if you're getting investment, recaging yourself on, do our values and our culture need to change for this new season that we're entering into this business?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, culture is a forever growing and changing thing for sure. And it changes, whenever every time you add more people. And so it definitely needs to
Absolutely.
be evaluated regularly. Right. Jason, let's get into your moment of gratitude. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world, but what are you feeling grateful for today?
I am so grateful for the folks I've met in the Las Vegas startup community and the Las Vegas veterans community. For a lot of years, I was kind of working on my own. I was doing my MBA at UNLV. I was, head down, turning the crank myself, just working through the steps. And as the years went by, I started to get to know more and more people like you, like Sophia Monroe, like Dave Berlin, folks who kind of straddle some of these communities as well. The Las Vegas startup, the Las Vegas small business, the Las Vegas veterans community. And those folks, getting to know those folks and building that support network has been huge for accelerating the growth of my business as well, in addition to just making my life just much more generally enjoyable.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Love that, Jason. Definitely great to be part of the Vegas startup scene, the tech scene, and I love the work that you're doing on behalf of veterans as well. Focusing in on that community, and there's some magic that happens when we really just focus on community building, and we're seeing that more and more in Las Vegas. And so definitely excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I've been through a couple of cycles of this since I moved back here in 2015, and this most recent cycle of cooperation, collaboration, let's get together, let's do cool things, seems to really be taking hold in a way that the first couple of times I went through this, I didn't see.
Yep. I love that. Awesome. Well, great. Well, let's get into this life lesson. So I might debate you a little bit, but let's get into it. So the life lesson topic is fulfilling work is important, but it's still only one part of your life. There should be other things in your life. Jason, why don't you open that up for us?
Yeah, what we get into, you hear people talk about work-life balance or work-life integration a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who came from the Air Force, as someone who came from doing really important things where you had to spend, weeks at a time doing only that, being deployed in the Middle East, special projects, things like that, there are times in your life when you're going to have to be 100% focused on work. And what I really want to make sure, at least in my opinion, but what I'm trying to help people understand is that I think a lot of people think that work-life balance or work-life integration means is there's a perfect way I can block out my day that I can accomplish everything. I can have it all every single day.
Right.
And I don't want people to come away with that impression when we talk about work-life balance or work-life integration, especially if you're working in a startup. Yeah. There are gonna be times in a startup when you are 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, 6 months, when you are doing nothing but that. And you're gonna have to say to your family and friends, I'm gonna make it up to you. I'm going to be so busy doing this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there are going to be times when, as that startup takes hold or your business takes hold, or if you're wise enough to do this, I always seem to have a problem doing this, wise enough to do this in advance, is planning out that vacation for 6 months from now, buying the tickets, blocking it out so that you're forced to go do it.
Nice.
Right. There are things to do like that. And what I realized I've been advocating for this for a while of, look, there are times in your life when you're going to have to be 100% focused on business, and that's okay. But I was leaving out an important point of you should still have other things in your life, right? If you are only 100% focused on your business or whatever your mission is, you're going to burn out really quickly. Right. And, some folks, they are tenacious. They can hang in. They've got the willpower. They've got the energy. They can do that for years and years and years on end. But then they hit that point where, okay, the flywheel's turning. My business is going on its own. I've got a good team. And they look around themselves and they go, I've got time now, but I've got nothing else.
Mm.
And so that's really the part that I felt like I was leaving out when I was writing and talking to people is you don't want to get 10 years down the road and realize you've got nothing else.
Yeah.
It's important to make that time for self-care. To me, it's really important to get to the gym every day, to drink enough water, to get enough sleep, right? There are nights I've got to stay up late, but if there's nothing that's got to be done by 6 in the morning, I'm usually in bed at my regular time. I'm actually pretty notorious for getting up early, like 4 or 5 in the morning to get stuff done before things get going in the morning. But,
that's great.
And everyone's got to decide what's right for them. But what I really want to emphasize is there's no perfect way to map out your day, no perfect way to map out your week where you're going to be able to have it all every single day, every single week. I want to dispel that illusion right now. If something's important to you, you've got to put the time in when it's important. If that's a business or a startup or some other mission, some other impact you want to make, there are going to be times when you're just going to have to focus 100% on that. But have other things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't show up 10 years later and go, now what?
Right. Don't, I think somebody just said this at a recent event you may have been at, and he said something along the lines of, a lot of folks sacrifice their health to build wealth only to spend their wealth rebuilding their health or to save
absolutely. Yeah.
And that's a terrible trap to fall in, for sure. Jason, you took all of the words out of my mouth. When I said debate, those are all of the points that I would have mentioned about, a startup or mission. Like if you have there are these like times in life where, you can't really get the work-life balance as much as you may want to, and it just depends on what's more important. If at this time you want to launch the startup, or maybe you have this mission, like campaigns, political campaigns, when the folks that are running the campaigns for president and US Senate, right, their lives are a lot like that too, because everything is on the line. We got to do this, we got to win, otherwise what's going to happen next? But it should be a cycle, and folks should have something else. I agree with you wholeheartedly on all of that. Let's see what else. What are some of the things that are there for you besides you? It sounds like you have a really great regimented like routine to an extent, but what are some of the other areas in your life outside of work that help bring you some joy and balance?
Well, and I speak from experience on this. So I did 20 years in the Air Force, and then I started a business, and I started going to school for my MBA, and I found myself in that position of, well, what else? So I've got a great group of friends. In fact, a lot of the friends that I had when we were all here in the Air Force together in Las Vegas 20 years ago have moved back to the area. And one of
Oh,
them
nice.
actually just retired from the Air Force. His ceremony was last weekend down in New Orleans. And so we all went down there. So that group of friends is something that's very important to me. And we all get busy with our own things. We're always talking about how we need to spend more time together. But that's a group that is very important to me. And again, part of that work-life balance, in addition to your self-care, it's important to have multiple support networks, right? A group that's from your professional life you can go to for mentoring and guidance and just support in your professional life. There's your family, but there's also, you've got to have some other support group of folks
Yeah.
who are not your family and not your work colleagues or your industry colleagues, so
Mhm.
that you can just get some outside perspective and be able to talk about some things that are not work or your family, right?
Yeah.
Because while family is wonderful, if you're all wrapped up in that and nothing else, that can be a recipe for danger as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
That can
Yeah,
that can that
definitely
can be a
balance.
source of stress that if you don't have an outlet for it, that
Right.
you will not be doing yourself or your family any favors.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's a lot like the importance of having a therapist. If you don't have that, friend or confidant, somebody that you can confide into to get some
Right.
outside perspective that has no interest, whether it's your
Mhm.
business or your family. And for a lot of people, that could be a therapist as well. But I love that you got your friends group. I mean, what do you guys You said you have the ceremony. Do you guys do like outdoor stuff? What else do you like to do?
That is not a huge outdoor crowd, although we do some of that
Okay,
sometimes. This is more of a hanging out at somebody's house on a pool, by
nice.
the pool on a weekend kind of thing, having a few drinks, going out to happy hour, going out to dinner,
Yep.
going to see a band downtown or on Fremont Street, or just things like that in general. So and it's important. It's important to have hobbies, and that group of friends, we all have our own hobbies. Our
Yeah.
hobbies don't overlap a lot. So we also have other groups of friends that we hang out with as well.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense for sure. Cool, yeah. I've got like my Yu-Gi-Oh buddies,
Mhm.
from high school and that kind of stuff, and different groups of friends. So that's a great way to get that work-life balance. I know we're coming up at time, and you've got your website right here, evilgeniusleadership.com.
That's right.
Um, would you like to talk about that and tell folks how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, on the website, you can reach out. There's a form there you can fill out if you just want to talk. LinkedIn is great to get a hold of me. So Jason LeDuc on LinkedIn or Evil Genius Leadership on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. It's the platform I probably spend the most amount of time on. It's great for making connections. So reach out to me there. I'm always happy to make a new connection there and chat a bit. Um, we are Evil Genius Leadership on all of the other socials, um, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We are Evil Genius Lead. But if you search for Evil Genius Leadership, you'll find us on those primary socials. We don't have a Snap or a TikTok or anything like that yet, but we're doing more video work. We're getting ready to put some more videos out, revitalize the YouTube channel. Actually, check out the YouTube channel. We have a lot of old stuff on there that I think is hugely relevant and kind of falls in the line of the type of stuff we talk today. So Evil Genius Leadership on YouTube, and leave a comment or send a message, and always love getting to know and talking to new people.
Absolutely. I'm looking at your YouTube right now, and there's so many really cool videos. So I'm gonna have to catch up on here. And you've got some interviews on here with some familiar faces. So definitely excited to dig
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, catch up on YouTube because we've got some new stuff that I think is going to be pretty amazing coming out. Maybe in June, maybe in July, but definitely coming out in the next little bit here. We're going to have some really great stuff coming out on YouTube.
Awesome, awesome, Jason. Thank you again so much for being on the podcast today.
All right, thank you for having me.